The envelope sat on the kitchen counter, cream-colored and expensive, the kind of stationery Maya Webb had never been able to afford in her 7 years of marriage. Her hands trembled as she held it, 8 months pregnant with twins, her swollen belly making it difficult to stand for long periods. But it wasn't a bill. It wasn't another collection notice or final warning about their mounting credit card debt. It was divorce papers. Her husband Marcus stood in the doorway of their modest 2-bedroom apartment, his arms crossed over his chest, his jaw set in that way she'd come to recognize over the past 6 months. The look that said he'd already made up his mind and nothing she said would matter. Behind him, partially obscured by his body, stood Sienna Drake, Marcus's colleague from the consulting firm, the woman who'd been showing up more and more frequently over the past year, the woman who was now wearing Maya's favorite necklace, the one Marcus claimed he'd lost 3 months ago. "Sign it," Marcus said. His voice was cold, commanding. No preamble, no explanation. Just 2 words that shattered 7 years of marriage. Maya looked down at the papers, her vision blurring. The twins kicked hard against her ribs, as if they could sense her distress. She pressed a hand to her belly, trying to calm them, trying to calm herself, trying to understand what was happening. "Marcus, what?" Her voice cracked. "What is this?" "It's divorce papers. I already told you. Sign them now. We both need to move on." She looked up at him, really looked at him. This man she'd met in college, who'd promised her forever at a courthouse wedding they couldn't afford to make fancy. This man who'd held her hand through 2 miscarriages before these twins finally stuck. This man who'd told her just 3 weeks ago that they'd figure out the money problems together. His eyes were empty, cold, like she was a stranger, like she was a problem to be solved rather than a person to be loved. "I'm 8 months pregnant," Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. "With your children. Twins. We've been trying for years to have babies, and now—" "I know what you are," Marcus interrupted, his tone sharp. "But this isn't working. It hasn't been working for a long time." Sienna stepped forward then, into the light of the kitchen. She was younger than Maya, maybe 26 to Maya's 33. Slim, polished, wearing clothes that cost more than Maya's entire wardrobe. Her makeup was perfect. Her hair was styled. She looked like everything Maya used to be before the weight gain of carrying twins had added 60 pounds to her frame. "I'm sorry you're hurt," Sienna said. But her voice held no actual sympathy. It was the kind of sorry people said when they didn't mean it, when they were following a script of basic decency while feeling none of it. "But Marcus and I are in love. Have been for a long time. It's better for everyone if we're honest about it now." Maya's hands clenched around the papers. "How long?" "What?" Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "How long have you been seeing her? How long have you been lying to me?" Silence, heavy and damning. "It doesn't matter," Marcus finally said. "What matters is that I'm not happy. I haven't been happy. And I'm choosing to do something about it." "You're choosing," Maya repeated, the words tasting like ash in her mouth. "You're choosing to leave your 8 months pregnant wife. You're choosing to abandon your children before they're even born. You're choosing to blow up our entire life because you're not happy." "Don't make me the villain here," Marcus's voice rose slightly. "You knew things weren't good. You knew I was struggling. You just kept pretending everything was fine, because that's what you do. You avoid conflict until it explodes." Maya wanted to scream, wanted to throw the papers at him, wanted to ask how she was supposed to address conflicts he never brought up, problems he never mentioned, dissatisfaction he hid behind fake smiles and empty "I love yous." But the twins were kicking harder now, distressed by her elevated heart rate. and she forced herself to breathe, to stay calm, to protect them even as their father destroyed their family. "What about the babies?" she asked. "What about your daughters?" "I'll pay child support," Marcus said quickly, like he'd rehearsed this line. "I'll be in their lives. But I need to be happy first. I need to be with someone who understands me, who makes me feel alive." Sienna smiled then, just slightly. Just enough for Maya to see it and understand that this woman knew exactly what she'd done, what she'd taken, what she'd won. "Sign the papers, Maya," Marcus said again, his patience clearly wearing thin. "We've both wasted enough time." Maya looked down at the envelope again. Inside were documents that would end her marriage. Documents that would make official what had apparently been true for months. That she was alone in this relationship. That Marcus had already left, even if his body was still technically present. And then she remembered. The ticket. The lottery ticket she'd bought that morning at the gas station while getting gas for their 12-year-old Honda that barely ran anymore. She'd bought it on a whim, using the last $3 in her wallet. The kind of desperate hope people cling to when they're drowning in bills and broken promises. She'd checked it that afternoon while Marcus was at work. Had stared at the numbers on her phone screen for 20 minutes, convinced she was reading them wrong, convinced it couldn't be real. But it was real. $800 million. She'd won the Powerball jackpot. $800 million. Life-changing, generational wealth that would mean she'd never worry about money again. That her daughters would grow up secure and protected and wanting for nothing. And she hadn't told anyone. Hadn't called the lottery commission yet. Hadn't signed the back of the ticket. Had just slipped it back into her purse, planning to talk to a lawyer first. To figure out how to claim it properly, how to protect it. She'd been planning to tell Marcus tonight, to share the news, to believe that maybe, just maybe, this windfall would ease the financial stress that had been crushing them, that had turned him cold and distant and mean. But now, standing in her kitchen with divorce papers in her hands and her husband's mistress wearing her necklace, Maya made a different decision. She wouldn't tell him, wouldn't mention the ticket, would let him serve these papers thinking she was broke and desperate and at his mercy. "I need time to read this," Maya said finally, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm not signing anything without understanding what I'm agreeing to." Marcus's jaw clenched. "There's nothing to understand. It's straightforward. You get the apartment for now, I keep the car, we split debt proportionally based on income, which means I get most of the debt since I barely work," Maya finished for him, recognizing the pattern. She'd been a part-time administrative assistant, working from home, making maybe $15,000 a year while Marcus pulled in 6 figures at his consulting firm. On paper, she looked like the dependent spouse, the one who needed him. "You'll get child support," Marcus said, like that was generous. Like $700 a month would cover raising twins. "How thoughtful," Maya said, and something in her tone made him frown. "Look, I'm trying to be fair here. Fair." The word burst out of her before she could stop it. "Fair would have been telling me you weren't happy before you started fucking your coworker. Fair would have been couples therapy. Fair would have been treating me like a human being instead of a problem you're discarding." Sienna's face hardened. "Don't talk to him like that." Maya turned to her, really looked at her for the first time. This woman who'd helped destroy her marriage. This woman who'd probably known Maya existed. Known about the pregnancy, known everything, and chosen to pursue Marcus anyway. "How long?" Maya asked her directly. Sienna's chin lifted. "What?" "How long have you been sleeping with my husband? That's none of your business." Everything about my husband is my business until these papers are signed. So, I'll ask again. How long? Sienna looked at Marcus, some silent communication passing between them. Finally, she said, 10 months. 10 months? Maya had been 4 months pregnant when it started. When Marcus had started coming home late. When he'd started picking fights about small things. When he'd started sleeping on the couch more often than in their bed. She'd thought it was stress. Thought it was fear about the twins. Thought it was normal couple problems that would resolve once the babies came and they adjusted to their new life. She'd been so stupidly, naively wrong. Get out, Maya said quietly. What? Marcus blinked. Get out of my kitchen. Get out of my apartment. Get out of my sight. I'll read the papers and let you know my decision. This is my apartment too, Marcus said, his voice taking on that edge she had learned to fear over the past year. My name is on the lease. Then I'll leave. Maya set the papers down on the counter and turned toward the bedroom, every step an effort with the weight of the twins and the weight of betrayal pressing down on her. Where are you going? Marcus called after her. To pack a bag, since you clearly want me gone. She heard him following her, heard Sienna's heels clicking on the linoleum behind him. In their bedroom, the room where they'd conceived these babies, where they'd talked about names and nursery colors and all the dreams that were now shattered, Maya pulled out the worn duffel bag she'd used in college. You don't have to leave right now, Marcus said. But his tone suggested he actually wanted exactly that. We can figure out a transition. I'm 8 months pregnant with twins, Marcus. There is no comfortable transition. There's just you kicking me out or me leaving with dignity. I choose dignity. She started pulling clothes from the dresser. Maternity shirts that were worn and stretched. Sweatpants that were the only things that fit anymore. The reality of her life, poor, pregnant, and about to be homeless, would have crushed her if she didn't know what was sitting in her purse downstairs. That lottery ticket was her secret, her power, her nuclear option. And Marcus had no idea it existed. Where will you go? Sienna asked from the doorway, and there was something in her voice that sounded like satisfaction. Like she wanted to hear Maya say she had nowhere, no one, nothing. I'll figure it out. Maya kept packing, her hands steady despite the chaos in her mind. You should think about the babies, Sienna continued. It's December. It's cold. You shouldn't be on the streets in your condition. Maya stopped, turned slowly to face her. Are you actually concerned about my welfare? Or are you just enjoying watching me lose everything? Sienna's smile was small but unmistakable. I'm just being practical. Practical, Maya laughed, a sound with no humor in it. You want to know what's practical? Walking away from people who treat you like you're disposable. Walking away from situations that are toxic. Walking away before you waste any more time on people who don't deserve you. She zipped the duffel bag, slung it over her shoulder, and walked past both of them. In the kitchen, she grabbed her purse, the one with the lottery ticket tucked safely in the inner pocket, and her phone charger. Maya, wait, Marcus said. And for the first time, there was uncertainty in his voice. Like maybe he was realizing this was actually happening. Like maybe he'd expected her to beg. She didn't wait, didn't look back, just kept walking toward the door. Where's my car keys? She asked. The car's in my name, Marcus said. I need it for work, of course. Of course he'd take the car too. And the phone? Maya asked, pulling out her phone. Is that in your name too? His silence was answer enough. Maya set her phone on the counter. I'll get my own plan. Keep it. How are you going to afford? Marcus started, then stopped, probably realizing he didn't actually care. I'll figure it out, Maya repeated. I've been figuring things out alone for 10 months while you were busy figuring out Sienna. I'll manage. She opened the door, felt the December cold hit her face, and took one last look at the apartment she'd called home for 5 years. At the life she'd built that was now rubble. At the man she'd loved who'd become a stranger. Sign the papers, Marcus called after her. The sooner we do this, the better for everyone. Maya stepped into the hallway, her duffel bag heavy on her shoulder, her pregnant belly making every movement awkward and difficult. She didn't answer him, didn't give him the satisfaction of a response. The elevator was broken, as usual, so she took the stairs carefully, one hand on the railing, one hand on her belly where the twins were kicking their distress. It's okay, she whispered to them. We're okay. I promise you, we're going to be more than okay. In the lobby, she passed Mrs. Chen, their elderly neighbor, who'd always been kind to her. Maya, dear, are you all right? Mrs. Chen's eyes were full of concern. You look upset. I'm fine, Maya lied. Just need to get some air. Outside, the December wind cut through her thin coat. The coat Marcus had always said was good enough, that they couldn't afford to replace, that she didn't really need since she barely went anywhere. She stood on the sidewalk, watching cars pass, watching people go about their normal lives while hers imploded. She had nowhere to go. No family nearby. Her parents had died in a car accident 3 years ago. Her sister lived in California, and they hadn't spoken in 2 years after a fight about money Maya had needed to borrow. She could call a friend, maybe Diane from work, but it was late. And showing up at someone's door 8 months pregnant with twins and homeless felt like too much to ask. A women's shelter, then. She'd seen signs for one about 3 miles away. She could walk it. Would have to walk it since she had no car, no phone to call an Uber, no money in her wallet except... She reached into her purse, pulled out the lottery ticket, and looked at it under the streetlight. The numbers were still there, still real. Still representing $800 million that Marcus knew nothing about. She'd won the lottery that morning, hours before her husband had destroyed her life. The timing was almost poetic, almost like the universe was saying, you don't need him. You never did. You just needed to believe in yourself. Maya put the ticket back carefully, making sure it was secure. Tomorrow she'd call a lawyer. Tomorrow she'd claim her prize. Tomorrow she'd start building the life she and her daughters deserved. But tonight, she just needed to survive, to find shelter, to protect her babies. She started walking, each step painful, each breath visible in the cold air. Behind her, in the apartment she'd just left, Marcus was probably already celebrating his freedom, already planning his future with Sienna, already convinced he'd made the right choice. He had no idea what he'd just lost. No idea that the poor, desperate wife he'd discarded was about to become one of the wealthiest women in America. No idea that his moment of cruelty was about to become the worst mistake of his life. Maya walked through the December cold, carrying her daughters and her secret. And for the first time in 10 months, she smiled. Not a happy smile, a knowing smile, a powerful smile. The smile of a woman who'd just been underestimated in the most catastrophic way possible. Marcus Webb sat in the apartment that suddenly felt too quiet, too empty, too full of ghosts. Sienna had left an hour ago, claiming she needed to get home, that it was too weird to stay in Maya's space. Which was ironic, considering she'd had no problem fucking him in Maya's bed for the past 10 months. He'd expected to feel relief, freedom, the rush that came from finally doing something he'd been building toward for months. Instead, he felt hollow, unsettled, like he'd forgotten something important but couldn't remember what. The divorce papers sat on the counter, unsigned. Maya had taken nothing but a duffel bag and her purse. Hadn't fought, hadn't begged, hadn't even cried after that initial shock. She'd just left. That wasn't like her. Maya fought for things, fought for their relationship even when he'd been actively pushing her away. The fact that she'd walked out so calmly, so completely, made him nervous in a way he didn't want to examine. His phone buzzed. A text from his mother, Linda. Linda. Did you tell her? Marcus frowned. He'd mentioned to his parents 2 weeks ago that he was planning to divorce Maya, that the relationship wasn't working, that he'd found someone better. His mother had been supportive in that cold, practical way of hers. Had even suggested the timeline. Do it now, before the babies came, to avoid additional complications. Marcus. Yes, she's gone. Linda. Good. That girl was never right for you. Too needy, too dependent. You can do better. Marcus stared at the text, feeling that same unsettled sensation. Maya wasn't needy. She'd been the opposite. So self-sufficient that sometimes he'd felt unnecessary. She'd handled everything. Bills, appointments, home maintenance, all of it, while barely complaining about his long hours and frequent work trips that had actually been weekends with Sienna. Another text came through, this time from his father, Robert. Robert, don't let her take you to the cleaners. Get those papers signed ASAP. Women like her always go after money in divorces. Women like her. Marcus's jaw clenched. His parents had never liked Maya, had never thought she was good enough for their son who'd graduated from a top business school and landed a 6-figure job at a prestigious consulting firm. They'd wanted him to marry someone like Sienna, someone polished and professional and from the right kind of family. He walked to the bedroom, saw the drawer where Maya had pulled clothes from. Most of her maternity wear was still there, along with the few nice dresses she'd kept from before the pregnancy. She'd taken almost nothing. Where was she going? Did she have money for a hotel? Did she have anyone to call? The questions bothered him more than they should have. He'd made his choice. He was with Sienna now. What Maya did was no longer his problem, except she was carrying his daughters. That made it his problem whether he wanted it to be or not. His phone rang. Sienna's name flashed on the screen. Hey, he answered. I've been thinking. Sienna's voice was light, excited. We should go to Turks and Caicos, a celebration trip. Get away from all this drama. I can't just leave town right now. There's the divorce to finalize, work commitments. Marcus, you've been talking about leaving her for 6 months. Now you've finally done it. Don't you want to celebrate? Don't you want to enjoy your freedom? He wanted to, should want to. But something felt wrong about celebrating while Maya was, where, homeless, at a shelter, with friends? Let me think about it, he said finally. Sienna's tone cooled. You're not having second thoughts, are you? No. No, of course not. I just need to make sure things are handled properly. Make sure she's stable. She's a grown woman, Marcus. She can take care of herself. Could she? Maya had been dependent on him for everything. Their joint bank account, which he'd need to transfer to his name only, had maybe $12,000 in it. Not nearly enough for security deposits and first month's rent and all the things she'd need. But that wasn't his problem anymore. He'd pay child support. would be in his daughter's lives. But he couldn't be responsible for Maya's choices, for her inability to support herself. "You're right," Marcus said to Sienna. "She'll figure it out." They talked for a few more minutes before hanging up, and Marcus found himself looking through drawers, through closets, through the apartment for any indication of where Maya might have gone. He found her laptop on the desk in the corner. She'd forgotten it, or left it because it was old and barely worked anyway. He opened it, guilt gnawing at him even as he justified the invasion of privacy. He just needed to make sure she was safe. That was all. Just needed to know she wasn't doing something stupid. The browser history showed nothing unusual. Amazon searches for baby supplies they couldn't afford. Articles about twin pregnancy. A few job listings she'd been looking at. Her email was open. Marcus scrolled through it, seeing bills, spam, newsletters. Then he saw it, an email from the Georgia State Lottery Commission, dated that morning. Subject line, "Congratulations, next steps for your winning ticket." Marcus's hands froze on the keyboard. His heart started pounding. Slowly, with trembling fingers, he clicked the email open. "Dear ticket holder, congratulations on your winning Powerball ticket. Our records indicate that your numbers match the December 15th drawing for the jackpot amount of $800,000. This email is to confirm that we've received your preliminary inquiry and to provide you with information on how to claim your prize." Marcus stopped reading, stopped breathing, stopped thinking beyond the number that kept repeating in his head. $800 million. $800 million. Maya had won the lottery, won it that morning, hours before he'd handed her divorce papers, and she hadn't said a word. She'd stood there, signed nothing, taken her duffel bag, and walked out into the December cold, carrying $800 million worth of winning lottery ticket in her purse. "No," Marcus said out loud to the empty apartment. "No, no, no." He pulled out his phone, tried calling Maya, then remembered she'd left her phone on the counter. He ran to check. Yes, there it was, still sitting where she'd placed it. She had no phone, no way to contact her. She'd simply vanished. With $800 million. He pulled up the lottery website on his phone, checked the winning numbers against the email. They matched. It was real. Maya had won. And he'd just served her divorce papers. His mother's text came back to him. "Don't let her take you to the cleaners." He laughed. Actually laughed. A hysterical sound that echoed in the empty apartment. Maya wasn't going to take him to the cleaners. Maya wasn't going to take anything from him because she didn't need anything from him. She had $800 million, and he'd called her needy, dependent, had told her she made him feel trapped. Marcus sank onto the couch, his head in his hands, and tried to process what he'd done. He'd left a woman worth $800 million for Sienna, who was beautiful and exciting, but who also had maxed credit cards and a shopping addiction and a lifestyle that cost far more than his salary could support. He'd destroyed his marriage, abandoned his pregnant wife, threw away 7 years of partnership. For nothing. For less than nothing. He'd gambled everything and lost spectacularly. His phone buzzed, another text from Sienna. "Sienna. Looked at flights. Turks is $4K per person. That's fine for you, right? Your consulting salary should cover it easily." Marcus stared at the text. At the casual assumption that he had disposable income for last-minute tropical vacations. At the reality that Sienna had expensive tastes and zero interest in adjusting them. Meanwhile, Maya, poor, needy Maya, was somewhere in Atlanta carrying twin babies and a winning lottery ticket worth more money than Marcus would earn in 20 lifetimes. He tried to think, tried to figure out his options. The divorce wasn't finalized. The papers weren't signed. Technically, they were still married. Technically, lottery winnings during marriage were marital property. But Maya was smart. Smarter than he'd given her credit for. If she'd won that morning and said nothing even when he was kicking her out, she was thinking strategically. She'd probably already contacted a lawyer, already figured out how to protect the money. And the law in Georgia was murky. Depended on when she claimed the prize, how it was structured, whether it could be proven that the marriage was already irretrievably broken when the ticket was purchased. Marcus grabbed his laptop again, started searching. Georgia lottery winnings divorce. Can spouse claim lottery money during divorce? How to protect lottery winnings from ex-spouse. The answers weren't encouraging. If she claimed the prize now, today, while still legally married but separated, it could go either way. Depended on lawyers, judges, circumstances. But if she waited, if she was smart enough to wait until after the divorce was finalized, then it was all hers. Every penny. And he'd get his $700 a month in child support deducted from his six-figure salary while she lived like a queen. Fuck, Marcus said into the empty apartment. Fuck, fuck, fuck. His phone rang. His father. Did you get the papers signed? Robert Webb's voice was brisk, businesslike. She left without signing them. What do you mean she left? I mean she packed a bag and walked out. No fight, no argument, just left. Well, find her and get them signed. The longer this drags out, the more complicated it gets. Marcus wanted to tell his father about the lottery. Wanted to explain that complicated didn't begin to cover what this situation had become. But something stopped him. Maybe pride. Maybe the knowledge that his father would blame him for the timing. Maybe the understanding that admitting he'd thrown away $800 million would make him look like the biggest fool who ever lived. I'll handle it, Marcus said instead. See that you do. And Marcus, that girl at your firm, the one you're seeing, your mother looked into her family. They're nobodies. No money, no connections. Are you sure she's the upgrade you think she is? Marcus thought about Sienna's expectations, her $4,000 vacation demands, her assumption that his money was her money. Then he thought about Maya, who'd never asked for anything, who'd made their apartment a home with thrift store finds and creativity, who'd been content with cheap dates and quiet evenings because she cared about him, not his wallet. Past tense, had cared, before he'd destroyed everything. I'm sure, Marcus lied to his father. He hung up and sat in the silence, surrounded by the remnants of his marriage. Maya's coffee mug in the sink, her maternity pillow on the couch, the ultrasound photo of the twins stuck to the fridge with a magnet. Two baby girls he'd been excited about until Sienna had started talking about how having kids would tie him down, limit his freedom, make him old before his time. Two baby girls who were about to grow up with trust funds that would make them wealthier than anyone in his entire family tree combined. Two baby girls whose mother he'd just kicked out into the December cold. Marcus stood, grabbed his coat, and headed for the door. He had to find Maya, had to talk to her before she did something permanent, had to figure out how to salvage this catastrophic mistake. But as he reached for the doorknob, reality set in. He had no idea where she'd gone. No way to contact her. No claim on her time or her mercy or her lottery winnings that he'd been too stupid to know existed. Maya was gone. The money was gone. His marriage was gone. And all he had to show for it was Sienna's expensive taste and his parents' approval and the crushing understanding that he'd just made the single biggest mistake of his entire life. The shelter smelled like industrial cleaner and desperation. Maya sat on the edge of a cot in a room shared with 3 other women, her duffel bag clutched in her lap, and tried to process the surreal reality of her situation. 24 hours ago, she'd been a married woman. Poor but housed. Struggling but stable. Now she was homeless, pregnant with twins, and secretly one of the wealthiest people in America. The dichotomy was almost funny. Almost. "First time?" the woman in the cot next to hers asked. She was maybe 45, weathered in a way that spoke of hard years. Her name tag said volunteer, but Maya suspected she'd been a resident first. "Is it that obvious?" "You're still in shock. That wears off after a few days, replaced by anger, then acceptance, then planning." The woman, Rose, she'd introduced herself as, smiled kindly. "You're at shock. That's okay. Shock keeps you moving when thinking would paralyze you." Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak. If she started talking, she might cry. If she started crying, she might not stop. "How far along?" Rose gestured to Maya's belly. 8 months. Twins." Rose's expression shifted to something softer. "Twins? That's a blessing and a curse at the same time, isn't it?" "Right now it feels more like a curse," Maya admitted. "I don't know how I'm going to take care of 1 baby, let alone 2. "You'll figure it out. Women always do. We're tougher than people think." The twins kicked, and Maya pressed her hand to her belly. She needed to claim the lottery prize. Needed to talk to a lawyer about how to do it properly, how to protect it during the divorce proceedings. But first, she needed a phone. "Is there a place nearby where I can buy a prepaid phone?" Maya asked. Rose pointed to a bulletin board on the wall. "Donations. There's usually some old phones people give in." They set them up with basic plans for emergencies. Talk to Sandra at the front desk. 20 minutes later, Maya had a beat-up iPhone 7 with a month of prepaid service. It wasn't much, but it was connection, communication, the ability to start building her way out of this situation. Her first call was to the number listed on the Lottery Commission's email. Her hands shook as she dialed. "Georgia Lottery Commission, this is Jennifer. How can I help you?" "Hi, I have a winning ticket. The Powerball from December 15th, the jackpot. I need to know how to claim it." There was a pause on the other end. When Jennifer spoke again, her voice had shifted to something more formal, more careful. "Can you verify the ticket number, please?" Maya read off the numbers, her heart pounding. "1 moment." Clicking keys, muffled conversation in the background. Then, "Miss, can you tell me your name, please?" "Maya Webb." "Well, Maya Morrison Webb. I'm in the middle of a divorce, and I need to make sure this is handled correctly." More silence. More clicking. "Ms. Webb, I'm going to transfer you to our legal department. Please hold." The hold music was cheerful, completely at odds with Maya's current reality. She sat on her cot in a women's shelter, pregnant and homeless, waiting to be connected to lawyers who would help her claim $800 million. The absurdity was overwhelming. "Ms. Webb?" A new voice, male, authoritative. "This is David Patterson, Senior Legal Counsel for the Lottery Commission. I understand you have the winning ticket from December 15th? "Yes." "And you're currently going through a divorce?" "Yes." "He served me papers yesterday, the same day I won. I haven't signed anything yet, and I haven't told him about the ticket." "Smart," David Patterson said immediately. "Very smart. Here's what you need to do. Come to our offices tomorrow at 10 a.m. Bring the ticket, Bring identification and don't tell anyone, and I mean anyone, about this win until we've secured it properly. Is that clear? Yes. Where are you staying? Do you have a safe place to keep the ticket? Maya looked around the shelter. Not really. Then we're moving up the timeline. Can you get here today? We're open until 6 p.m. for special appointments. Maya checked the time. 2:30 p.m. I can be there. Good. Ask for me specifically. And Ms. Webb? Don't sign those divorce papers until you've talked to your own lawyer. The lottery can recommend several who specialize in protecting assets during marital dissolution. After hanging up, Maya sat very still for a moment. This was really happening. She was really about to claim $800 million. Then the twins kicked hard, reminding her why this mattered. This wasn't about luxury or revenge or proving something to Marcus. This was about survival. About making sure her daughters grew up secure and loved, and never, ever dependent on someone who could throw them away. She stood, grabbed her duffel bag, and headed for the shelter's front desk. I need an Uber, she told Sandra. Is there Wi-Fi here? Sandra pointed to a posted password. Where are you going? To change my life. The Lottery Commission. Same day. The Georgia Lottery Commission building was downtown, glass and steel, and completely intimidating. Maya walked in with her duffel bag and her pregnant belly and her secret, and every person in the lobby turned to stare. She probably looked homeless, looked desperate, looked exactly like someone who'd buy lottery tickets out of desperation, rather than someone who'd actually won. I'm here to see David Patterson, she told the receptionist. He's expecting me. The receptionist's eyebrows rose, but she made the call. 2 minutes later, a man in his 50s appeared. Suit, glasses, carrying a briefcase that probably cost more than Maya's former car. Ms. Webb? He extended his hand. David Patterson, please, follow me. He led her through security, up an elevator, into a conference room that had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Atlanta. In any other circumstance, Maya would have been intimidated. But she'd spent the last 24 hours at rock bottom. Glass offices and fancy suits had lost their power to scare her. Before we begin, David said, settling into a chair across from her, I need to verify your identity and the ticket. Do you have both? Maya pulled out her driver's license and, from the inner pocket of her purse, the lottery ticket. She'd been carrying it close to her body since she bought it, terrified of losing it. David examined both carefully, then pulled out his phone and made a call. Send up Jessica with the verification equipment. While they waited, he studied Maya. You're going through a divorce. My husband served me papers yesterday at our apartment in front of his mistress. David's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes shifted. And he doesn't know about the win? No. I bought the ticket yesterday morning, checked it yesterday afternoon. Was planning to tell him that evening, but... Maya gestured vaguely. Plans changed? When did your husband start seeing the other woman? They've been having an affair for 10 months. David nodded, making notes. That's going to matter. The fact that the marriage was already deteriorating when you bought the ticket gives us some legal protection. But we need to be strategic about timing. A woman entered. Jessica, presumably, carrying what looked like a sophisticated scanner. She verified the ticket, cross-referenced it against a database, and nodded to David. It's legitimate, she confirmed. $800 million jackpot, December 15th drawing. Ticket purchased at the Shell station on Peachtree at 9:47 a.m. Maya let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Some part of her had been afraid this was all a mistake, a dream, a misunderstanding. But it was real. She'd won. Her life had changed. After Jessica left, David pulled out a legal pad. Here's what happens next. You can take the money as an annuity, 30 payments over 29 years, or as a lump sum. The lump sum is approximately $420 million before taxes. After federal and state taxes, you're looking at roughly $280 million. $280 million. Maya's brain couldn't process it. It was too big, too impossible. We recommend the lump sum for several reasons, David continued. Flexibility, investment opportunity, and protection from future tax increases. But more importantly for your situation, it allows us to structure the money in ways that protect it during your divorce. How? We're going to set up a trust. You'll claim the prize anonymously. Georgia allows that, through an LLC. The LLC will be the winner of record, not you personally. Then the LLC will transfer the money into an irrevocable trust with you as the primary beneficiary. Maya tried to follow. And that protects it from my husband? If done correctly, yes. Your husband can't claim assets he doesn't know exist. And if those assets are held in trust, rather than in your name directly, they're much harder to access in divorce proceedings. David paused. But timing is everything. If you claim the prize now, while still legally married, there's an argument that it's marital property. If you wait until after the divorce is finalized, it's completely protected. How long would that take? Depends on your husband's cooperation. If he wants to drag it out, 6 months. If he's eager to finalize, maybe 3. 3 months of living in a shelter, pregnant with twins, pretending to be broke while sitting on $280 million. What if he finds out? Maya asked. What if he discovers I won? Has he seen the ticket? No. Does he have access to your email? Maya thought about the laptop she'd left behind. Maybe, probably. I left my laptop at the apartment. David's jaw tightened. We need to assume he knows then, which changes our strategy. He pulled out his phone, made another call. I need an emergency meeting with Cheryl Mendez, Asset Protection Specialist, today if possible. 20 minutes later, another person joined them. Cheryl Mendez, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and an even sharper suit. You're the Powerball winner who's getting divorced, Cheryl said without preamble. And the ex-husband might know about the win. We don't know for sure, Maya said, but it's possible. Then we operate under worst-case assumption. If he knows, he's either talking to lawyers right now or he's going to try to reconcile. Either way, you need protection. Cheryl spent the next hour outlining a strategy so complex Maya could barely follow it. Trusts within trusts. LLCs holding assets. Legal structures designed to make the money virtually unreachable by anyone except Maya and her eventual daughters. This will cost about $150,000 in legal fees, Cheryl said finally. We'll take it from the prize money after you claim, but it's worth every penny because if your husband manages to get even 10% of $800 million, that's $80 million you've lost. Maya agreed to everything. Signed paperwork, provided information. And 3 hours later, she walked out of the Lottery Commission building as the owner, through a complex web of legal entities of $280 million. She took an Uber back to the shelter, ate dinner from donated food, slept on a cot surrounded by other women who were struggling, surviving, fighting. And she told no one about the small card in her purse with the number for her new financial advisor, the woman who would help her transform from homeless shelter resident to one of the wealthiest people in Atlanta. One step at a time, one day at a time, one strategic move at a time. Marcus had no idea what was coming. Maya met with Catherine Zhao, her new financial advisor, in an office on the 40th floor of a downtown skyscraper. The view stretched across Atlanta, and Maya couldn't help but think about how different this room was from the shelter where she'd slept the night before. "Mrs. Webb," Catherine said, extending her hand. "Or would you prefer Ms. Morrison?" "Maya is fine," Catherine smiled. "Maya it is. I've reviewed your situation and the structures the Lottery Commission set up. Excellent work. Your assets are protected as well as they can be at this stage. Now we need to talk about your next moves." She pulled up a presentation on a large screen. "You have approximately $280 million liquid, plus additional funds that can be accessed as needed. The question is, what do you want to do with it?" Maya looked at her pregnant belly. "Keep my daughters safe. Make sure they never depend on anyone the way I depended on my husband." "Good answer. Here's what I'm thinking. We set up trust funds for each girl, 50 million each, structured so they can't access the principal until they're 35. But they'll receive distributions for education, health care, and basic needs before then. 50 million each. Maya's daughters would never worry about money, never struggle, never be vulnerable. That leaves 180 million for you," Catherine continued, "which will invest conservatively, a mix of index funds, bonds, and real estate. With proper management, you should see returns of about 6 to 8 million annually. Plenty to live comfortably while preserving the principal. $6 to $8 million a year, more money than Maya could spend in a lifetime." "But before we get to the boring financial planning," Catherine said, her tone shifting, "we need to talk about your public image." "My public image? Right now you're a pregnant woman in a divorce who's living in a shelter. Your husband thinks you're desperate and broke, and that's a powerful position, being underestimated. The question is, how long do you want to maintain that position?" Maya thought about Marcus. Probably celebrating his freedom with Sienna right now. Thought about the cruel smirk on Sienna's face when she'd stood in Maya's kitchen wearing Maya's necklace. "I want them to see," Maya said quietly. "I want them to understand what they lost, what they threw away." Catherine smiled, and it wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who specialized in strategic revelation. "Then we're going to build you a public presence, charity work, society events, board memberships. We'll position you as a philanthropist who's emerged from difficult circumstances, and we'll do it in a way that makes your ex-husband and his mistress see you everywhere they look." Over the next 2 hours, they planned Maya's transformation. Not the physical kind, though that would happen naturally as the pregnancy ended and she recovered, but the social kind. "You'll need a place to live," Catherine said. "Something impressive but not ostentatious. I'm thinking a townhouse in Ansley Park, 4 bedrooms, space for the twins, and a nanny." "A nanny? You're going to be busy, and you'll need help. We'll hire a night nurse for the first 3 months after birth. Then transition to a full-time nanny who can support you as you build your new life." The idea of having help, of not having to do everything alone, made Maya want to cry. For 7 years with Marcus, she'd handled everything, worked part-time, managed the home, paid the bills, scheduled everything, while he focused on his career. Now, she could have help. Could breathe. Could be human. "When do you want to make your first public appearance?" Catherine asked. "The longer you wait, the more dramatic the reveal. But waiting also means more time living in the shelter." Maya thought about her daughters, about protecting them, about timing. How long until the divorce is final if Marcus cooperates? Your lawyer can file for expedited proceedings. If Marcus doesn't contest, maybe 6 weeks, 8 if there are minor complications. Then I wait. I stay invisible for 8 weeks. Let him think he won. Let him get comfortable. Then I show him exactly what he lost. Catherine nodded approvingly. Cold and calculated. I like it. But you'll need to be strategic about when and how he finds out. Do you want him to discover it on his own? Or do you want to control the revelation? Control it, Maya said immediately. I want him to see me, successful and thriving, and realize that everything he thinks he knows about me was wrong. Any specific venue in mind? A charity event? A gala? Maya smiled, and it was the kind of smile that carried weight. I want to go to his wedding. Catherine blinked. Excuse me? He's marrying his mistress. I guarantee you they're planning a wedding. Probably fast, before I have the babies, so they can start their new life. And I want to be there. I want to walk in transformed, powerful, undeniable. I want him to see me and understand, really understand, what he threw away. Catherine leaned back in her chair, studying Maya with new respect. That's bold. That's dramatic. That's exactly the kind of statement that will cement your reputation. Can we do it? We can do anything you want. You have essentially unlimited resources and a team of people whose job is to make you successful. The question isn't, can we do it? The question is, are you ready for what happens after? Because once you reveal yourself, there's no going back to being underestimated. Maya thought about Marcus's face when he'd handed her those divorce papers. Thought about Sienna's satisfied smirk. Thought about spending 8 months being told she wasn't enough. Wasn't interesting. Wasn't worth staying for. I'm ready, she said. I'm more than ready. Over the next week, Maya moved into a temporary apartment. Nothing fancy, just a 1-bedroom furnished rental that Catherine's team secured. It was infinitely better than the shelter, but Maya still visited the shelter twice a week, volunteering, helping other women, remembering where she'd been. She met with doctors, got proper prenatal care for the twins, and scheduled her C-section for 2 weeks before her due date. Twins rarely made it to full term, and better to plan than to risk complications. She hired James Morrison, an attorney who specialized in high-asset divorces, and they built their strategy. Marcus would get his divorce, but on Maya's terms. She'd agree to almost everything, the apartment, the car, even taking on more of the debt, because none of it mattered. She had money to burn, and she wanted Marcus to think he'd won. Meanwhile, James quietly filed for primary custody of the twins, arguing that Marcus had abandoned his pregnant wife and showed no interest in parenting. They included time-stamped evidence of his departure. Witness statements from Mrs. Chen about Maya leaving with a duffel bag, everything needed to paint Marcus as the villain he was. He's going to fight this, James warned. No man likes to be painted as a deadbeat father, even if he is one. Let him fight, Maya said. Let him spend money on lawyers and custody battles while I'm building my daughter's futures. By the time we're done, he'll have nothing left to fight with. The C-section was scheduled for January 15th, exactly 1 month after Marcus had kicked her out. Maya would give birth to her daughters, recover for 2 weeks, and then she'd start making public appearances. By February 1st, she'd be visible again. By March 1st, she'd be undeniable. And by the time Marcus married Sienna, which Maya's private investigator reported would happen in mid-April, she'd be positioned to make an entrance that would destroy them both. But first, she had to survive the pregnancy, give birth to healthy babies, and build the foundation of her new life. One day at a time, one strategic move at a time. one step closer to the moment when Marcus would realize that divorcing Maya Webb was the single worst decision he'd ever made. Maya went into labor 3 days before her scheduled C-section, her water breaking at 2 a.m. in the temporary apartment she'd been living in. The contractions came fast and hard, and within an hour, she was in the hospital, surrounded by doctors and nurses who treated her like she mattered, like she was important. Because Catherine had made sure Maya had the best health care money could buy. Private room, top obstetrician, everything Marcus had said they couldn't afford, Maya now had without thinking twice about the cost. The twins were born at 6:47 a.m., 2 minutes apart. The first daughter came out screaming, red-faced and furious at being evicted from her warm home. 5 pounds, 3 ounces. Perfect. "What's her name?" the nurse asked, placing the tiny baby on Maya's chest. "Eleanor," Maya said without hesitation. "Eleanor Rose Morrison, after my grandmother." Her grandmother, who died when Maya was 16, who'd told her that Morrison women were strong, that they survived, that they won. Her grandmother, who would have been proud of what Maya was about to do. The second daughter came 2 minutes later, smaller but quieter. 4 pounds, 11 ounces. She didn't cry immediately, just looked around with dark, serious eyes, as if already assessing the world. "And this one?" the nurse asked. "Sophia. Sophia Grace Morrison." No Webb. No connection to Marcus in their names. These were Morrison girls, and they'd carry that legacy forward. The doctor examined both babies, declared them healthy despite being 5 weeks early, and the NICU team took them for observation while Maya was stitched up and moved to recovery. Catherine arrived 2 hours later, carrying flowers and a briefcase. "You gave birth and you're still working?" Maya asked weakly. "I'm not working. I'm visiting a friend who just became a mother." Catherine set the flowers down and pulled out her tablet. "But since I'm here, I thought you'd want to see something." She turned the tablet around. On the screen was a news article from the Atlanta Business Chronicle. "Mystery donor pledges $10 million to Atlanta Children's Hospital." Maya scanned the article, saw her LLC's name, Elara Holdings, listed as the donor. Saw quotes from the hospital administrator about transformational gifts and community impact. "That's me. That's you. Anonymous for now. But it's generating exactly the kind of buzz we want. People are asking questions. Who is Elara Holdings? Where did this money come from? Why now?" Catherine smiled. "We're planting seeds. By the time you're ready to reveal yourself, everyone will already be curious about you." Over the next 3 days in the hospital, Maya learned how to nurse 2 babies simultaneously, how to change diapers one-handed while holding another infant, how to function on 2 hours of sleep. The night nurse Catherine had hired, a woman named Helen with 30 years of experience, showed up on day 2. "I'll take the overnight shift," Helen said firmly. "You recover, sleep, heal. The babies will be fine." "I should be doing this myself," Maya protested weakly. "Why? Because suffering builds character? You've had enough character building for 1 month. Let me help you." So Maya slept. Really slept. For the first time since Marcus had handed her those divorce papers, she slept through the night and woke up feeling almost human. On day 4, she was discharged. Not to the temporary apartment, but to her new townhouse in Ansley Park that Catherine's team had been setting up while Maya was in the hospital. The car that picked her up wasn't Marcus's old Honda. It was a Mercedes SUV with car seats already installed, a driver who carefully helped her settle the twins, and heated seats that eased the pain from her C-section incision. The townhouse took Maya's breath away. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, A nursery that had been decorated in soft grays and whites with 2 cribs, 2 changing tables, everything doubled for twins. "You did all this in 4 days?" Maya asked Catherine, who'd come to help her settle in. "I had a team and unlimited budget. It's amazing what you can accomplish when money isn't an object." The master bedroom had a king-sized bed with the softest sheets Maya had ever felt. The kitchen was stocked with food. The bathrooms had thick towels and high-end toiletries. There was even a small gym in the basement. Nothing fancy, just a treadmill, some weights, and a yoga mat. "You'll want to get your body back," Catherine said, seeing Maya notice it. "Not because you need to prove anything, but because feeling strong makes you powerful. And we want you powerful." That night, with Helen handling the baby's overnight feedings, Maya lay in her enormous bed and cried. Not from sadness, but from relief. From gratitude. From the overwhelming realization that she'd survived the worst moment of her life and come out the other side into something better than she'd imagined. Her phone buzzed, the prepaid one from the shelter that she'd kept as a reminder of where she'd been. A text from an unknown number. Unknown. "Maya, it's Marcus. I got your number from the hospital, said I was the father. We need to talk. Please call me." Maya stared at the message for a long moment. Then she typed back, carefully, strategically. "Maya, the divorce papers say we don't need to talk. Everything can go through lawyers." Marcus, "I never meant for it to go this far. Can we please just meet? Coffee? 5 minutes? Maya, "Why?" Marcus, "Because I made a mistake, a huge mistake, and I need to fix it." So he knew about the lottery, knew about the money, and now he wanted to fix it. Maya almost laughed. Instead, she typed, "Maya, you can't fix this, Marcus. You can only live with what you did. Lawyer's information is James Morrison at Morrison & Associates. All communication goes through him." Marcus, "Maya, please, I'm begging you, just 5 minutes." Maya, "You had 7 years. You used them to cheat on me, abandon me, and kick me out while pregnant. You don't get 5 more minutes." She blocked the number and set the phone down. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear, from power, from the satisfaction of saying no, of establishing boundaries, of refusing to let him back in now that he realized what he'd lost. The babies cried from the nursery, a sound that was becoming familiar, comforting even. Maya got up carefully, her incision pulling, and went to her daughters. Eleanor was screaming, red-faced and furious. Sophia was whimpering, more subdued, but clearly unhappy. "I know," Maya whispered, lifting Eleanor. "I know it's hard being new, but we're going to be okay. Better than okay." She settled into the nursing chair, got both babies positioned, and felt them latch on. The pain of nursing was nothing compared to what she'd been through. And every time they fed, they grew stronger, healthier, more independent, just like her. The divorce hearing was scheduled for March 1st, exactly 10 weeks after Marcus had served those papers. Maya walked into the courthouse in a charcoal gray suit, her hair pulled back, minimal jewelry. She looked professional, serious, like someone who understood the gravity of the proceeding. Marcus was already there with his lawyer, a man in his 50s who looked expensive and aggressive. Marcus himself looked terrible, exhausted, stressed, like he hadn't slept in weeks. Good. Sienna sat behind him in the gallery, noticeably not pregnant, despite being supposedly 6 months along. Her hand went to her flat stomach occasionally in that performative way, but anyone with eyes could see there was no baby bump. Maya's private investigator had confirmed what everyone suspected. The pregnancy was fake. Had been fake from the start. And Maya had evidence. Texts, medical records Sienna had foolishly discussed with a friend. Everything needed to prove the lie. But that revelation wasn't for today. That was for later. For the moment, that would hurt the most. The judge, a woman in her late 50s named Judge Patricia Kowalski, reviewed the divorce petition, the response, the various motions that had been filed over the past 10 weeks. "This should be straightforward," Judge Kowalski said, looking over her glasses at both parties. "No contested custody, no significant marital assets, no disputes over debt division. Is that correct?" "Your Honor," Marcus's lawyer stood. "We do have concerns about assets that may have been acquired during the marriage that Mrs. Webb has not disclosed." Judge Kowalski frowned. "What assets?" "We have reason to believe Mrs. Webb came into significant wealth through lottery winnings while still married to my client." The courtroom went very quiet. Judge Kowalski turned to James Morrison. "Counselor?" James stood, calm and prepared. "Your Honor, my client did purchase a lottery ticket on December 15th, the same day Mr. Webb served her with divorce papers at their shared apartment. The same day he abandoned her while she was 8 months pregnant with twins. However, she did not claim the lottery prize until January 20th, 5 days after giving birth and more than a month after the separation." "Your Honor," Marcus's lawyer interrupted, "the ticket was purchased during the marriage. While my client was being abandoned," James cut in, "while Mr. Webb was actively choosing his mistress," he gestured to Sienna, "over his pregnant wife. The marriage was irretrievably broken at that moment. Any assets acquired afterward, even if the ticket was purchased hours before the separation, are post-marital assets." Judge Kowalski held up a hand. "Let me be clear about something. Mr. Webb, you served divorce papers on your pregnant wife on December 15th. Is that correct?" Marcus's lawyer started to speak, but the judge cut him off. "I'm asking Mr. Webb directly." Marcus stood awkwardly. "Yes, Your Honor. But I didn't know she'd bought a lottery ticket. That's not what I asked. Did you or did you not serve divorce papers to your 8 months pregnant wife on December 15th? "I did." "And where did this service take place?" Marcus hesitated. "At our apartment." "And did Miss Sienna Drake," Judge Kowalski looked at her notes, "accompany you during this service?" "She was present, yes." "Present as in standing next to you while you handed your pregnant wife divorce papers?" "Your Honor, the specifics of—" Marcus's lawyer tried to intervene. "I want to understand the timeline," Judge Kowalski said firmly. "Mr. Webb chose to end his marriage in the presence of his mistress while his wife was 8 months pregnant with twins. Is that a fair characterization?" The silence was damning. "Yes, Your Honor," Marcus finally said, his voice barely audible. Judge Kowalski turned to James. "When did your client claim the lottery prize?" "January 20th, Your Honor, 5 days after giving birth. During those 5 weeks between separation and claiming the prize, she was homeless, staying in a women's shelter, trying to survive with 2 newborns." The judge's expression hardened. "And Mr. Webb, what were you doing during those 5 weeks?" Marcus's lawyer stood quickly. "Your Honor, my client's activities post-separation are not relevant to—" "I'll decide what's relevant. Mr. Webb?" Marcus looked at his lawyer, who shook his head slightly. But the judge was waiting, and lying under oath was perjury. "I was with Sienna," Marcus said quietly. "The woman who is seated behind you now?" "Yes." "And is Ms. Drake pregnant as you claimed in your initial filing. Every eye in the courtroom turned to Sienna, whose face went pale. Your Honor, Marcus's lawyer said quickly, my client was mistaken about the pregnancy. Ms. Drake suffered a miscarriage. When? Judge Kowalski asked sharply. Silence. Ms. Drake, the judge said directly. Stand up, please. Sienna stood, her hands shaking. Were you ever pregnant? I thought I was. The test was positive. Were you pregnant? Judge Kowalski repeated. Yes or no? No. Sienna's voice was barely a whisper. Louder, please. No, I wasn't pregnant. The courtroom erupted. Judge Kowalski banged her gavel. Order! Everyone quiet or I'll clear this room. She turned back to Marcus, and her expression was withering. So let me make sure I understand this correctly. You divorced your actually pregnant wife, pregnant with twins, in order to be with a woman who lied about being pregnant. Is that accurate? Marcus's face was red. I didn't know she was lying. That's not what I asked. Yes, Marcus said. That's accurate. Judge Kowalski looked at the paperwork in front of her, then at Maya, who had sat quietly through the entire exchange. Mrs. Webb, Ms. Morrison, do you have anything to add? Maya stood, her voice calm and clear. Your Honor, I bought a lottery ticket on December 15th at 9:47 a.m. At 6 p.m. that same day, my husband served me with divorce papers in the presence of his mistress. I left our apartment with one duffel bag and 2 babies in my womb. I spent the next month in a women's shelter, gave birth 5 weeks early, and finally claimed my lottery winnings only after I was certain the marriage was over and my children were safe. She paused, making sure everyone was listening. I'm not asking for anything from Mr. Webb, except to finalize this divorce so I can move forward with my life and raise my daughters without him. He made his choice on December 15th. I'm simply asking this court to recognize that choice and make it permanent. Judge Kowalski nodded slowly. I've seen a lot of divorce cases in my 20 years on the bench. This is one of the clearer examples of abandonment and marital misconduct I've encountered. She looked at Marcus's lawyer. Your client has no claim to assets acquired after he chose to end the marriage. The lottery winnings are not marital property. They are not subject to division. And frankly, based on what I've heard today, your client is lucky Mrs. Morrison isn't asking for more. She signed papers quickly, efficiently. Divorce is granted. Primary custody of the minor children, Eleanor Rose Morrison and Sophia Grace Morrison, is awarded to the mother. Mr. Webb will pay child support as specified in the agreed terms, $700 per month, and will have supervised visitation rights every other weekend, pending a custody evaluation. Your Honor, Marcus stood, desperate now. I'd like to request, you don't get to request anything else today, Mr. Webb. You made your choices. Now you live with the consequences. Judge Kowalski banged her gavel. We're done here. Divorce is final as of today's date. Maya stood, feeling the weight of 10 weeks lift off her shoulders. She was free. Legally, officially, completely free. As she walked out of the courtroom, Marcus tried to intercept her in the hallway. Maya, please We have nothing to discuss, Maya said without stopping. I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. Can't we please No. She turned to face him finally, and her eyes were cold. You don't get to come back now that you realize what you lost. You don't get to apologize your way out of consequences. You chose Sienna and her fake pregnancy over our real family. You chose cruelty over kindness. You chose to laugh while your mistress called me fat. Those were your choices, Marcus. Now live with them. The twins, my daughters, will grow up knowing that their father abandoned them before they were born, that he chose a lie over reality, that he valued his own happiness over their existence. Maya's voice was steady, matter-of-fact. You'll get your supervised visits. You'll pay your $700 a month. And you'll spend the rest of your life watching from a distance as I raise them to be strong, independent women who never depend on men who don't deserve them. She walked away, leaving Marcus standing in the courthouse hallway, destroyed. Behind her, she heard Sienna's voice, shrill and panicked. Marcus, you said this would work. You said we'd get some of the money. And Marcus's response, defeated. I was wrong. I was wrong about everything. In the car, Catherine was waiting with champagne, non-alcoholic since Maya was still nursing. Congratulations, Catherine said, handing her a glass. You're officially a free woman. A free, incredibly wealthy, completely untouchable woman. Maya took the glass, but she didn't feel celebratory. She felt settled, like a chapter had closed and a new one was beginning. Now what? She asked. Catherine smiled. Now we plan your entrance to Marcus's wedding. Because according to our sources, he and Sienna are getting married in 6 weeks, April 15th, at the Riverside Plaza. They're still going through with it? Apparently, Sienna convinced him that they need to prove their love after the courtroom disaster. They're desperate to salvage their image. Maya thought about it. About the symmetry of showing up at Marcus's wedding the same way he'd shown up in her life with divorce papers. About the satisfaction of letting him see exactly what he'd lost. Then we have 6 weeks to prepare, Maya said. 6 weeks to make sure when I walk into that wedding, everyone, especially Marcus, understands that I'm not the woman he threw away. I'm the woman who rose from the ashes of his betrayal and became something he could never touch, never reach, never diminish again. That's my client, Catherine said, raising her glass. To poetic justice? To poetic justice, Maya echoed. And to the final act that would cement Marcus Webb's biggest regret. The morning of April 15th dawned bright and clear. Perfect weather for a wedding. Maya stood in her townhouse, looking at her reflection in the full-length mirror, and barely recognized herself. Gone was the exhausted, overweight, desperate woman Marcus had kicked out 4 months ago. In her place stood someone powerful, someone transformed not just physically, but fundamentally. She'd lost 48 pounds total. Not from crash dieting, but from breastfeeding, proper nutrition, and consistent exercise. Her body wasn't the same as before pregnancy. Her hips were wider, her breasts fuller, her stomach marked with faint stretch marks she'd learned to see as battle scars rather than flaws. But she was strong, visibly, undeniably strong. The kind of strong that came from surviving impossible circumstances and emerging victorious. Her dress was midnight blue, Marcus's least favorite color on her, and it fit like it had been painted on. Couture, custom-made, worth more than their entire wedding had cost 7 years ago. Her jewelry was simple but real. Diamond studs, a delicate platinum necklace, a watch that cost $30,000 but looked understated. Her hair was styled in loose waves, professional but not overdone. Her makeup was perfect, natural but polished, emphasizing her eyes, her cheekbones, the confidence that radiated from every pore. "You look incredible," Catherine said from the doorway. She was coming as Maya's +1, along with James Morrison and his wife. A small entourage, but a powerful one. "I feel like I'm about to walk into battle." "You are." But you're wearing armor made of truth and carrying weapons made of consequences. They don't stand a chance. In the nursery, Eleanor and Sophia were sleeping. 3 months old now, healthy and perfect. The night nurse would stay with them while Maya was at the wedding. They'd be safe, protected, while their mother delivered justice. "Are you ready?" Catherine asked. Maya looked at herself one more time. This woman in the mirror, strong, wealthy, completely free, was who she'd always been. She'd just forgotten for a while, let Marcus convince her she was less than she was. Never again. "I'm ready." The Riverside Plaza was exactly as pretentious as Maya had imagined. All marble floors and crystal chandeliers and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. 200 guests milled around, dressed in their finest, waiting for the ceremony to begin. Maya's driver pulled up to the main entrance at 4:15, 15 minutes after the ceremony was scheduled to start, but before it would actually begin. Perfect timing to make an entrance without disrupting the proceedings. She stepped out of the black Mercedes, and heads immediately turned. Not just because she was beautiful, though she was, but because she radiated something that made people stare. Confidence, power, the unmistakable aura of someone who belonged anywhere she chose to be. Catherine and James followed her up the steps. The venue coordinator tried to intercept them at the door. "I'm sorry, but the ceremony is about to—" "Maya Morrison," Maya said calmly. "I'm on the guest list." The coordinator checked her tablet, eyes widening. "Oh, yes. Ms. Morrison. I didn't realize you're listed as Maya Webb." "I changed my name back. I'm sure you understand." The coordinator swallowed hard, recognizing the situation. The ex-wife at the wedding? This was going to be interesting. She led them into the main ballroom, where guests were seated in neat rows, facing an altar decorated with white flowers. At the front, Marcus stood in his tuxedo, looking nervous. Beside him was his best man, someone Maya didn't recognize. Probably a new friend, since most of his old friends had distanced themselves after the courthouse scandal. Sienna was nowhere to be seen. Probably in the bridal suite preparing her entrance. Maya walked down the center aisle, every step measured and deliberate. Conversation stopped. People turned. Whispers spread like wildfire. "Is that his ex-wife? She looks amazing. Didn't he leave her pregnant? I heard she won the lottery." Marcus saw her when she was halfway down the aisle. His face went through a rapid series of expressions. Shock, confusion, panic, something that might have been longing. Maya didn't smile, didn't acknowledge him. Just walked to the third row and slid into a seat Catherine had confirmed would be visible to everyone, especially the groom. "This is going to be good," Catherine whispered. The ceremony began 10 minutes later. Music played, guests stood, and Sienna made her entrance in a white dress that had probably cost $20,000. She looked beautiful. Maya could admit that objectively. But there was something desperate in her smile, something forced about her happiness. She saw Maya halfway down the aisle. Her steps faltered. Her bouquet trembled in her hands. Maya met her eyes and smiled. Not cruel, just knowing. Sienna recovered and continued to the altar, where Marcus waited looking like he might be sick. The officiant began the standard ceremony. "We are gathered here today to join Marcus Michael Webb and Sienna Rose Drake in holy matrimony." Maya half listened to the words, watching Marcus instead. Watching him try not to look at her. Watching him fail. Watching his attention drift to where she sat. Calm and beautiful and completely untouchable. "If anyone objects to this union," the officiant said, "speak now or forever. Hold your peace." The moment hung in the air. Maya could have spoken. Could have stood up and exposed everything. Could have destroyed them right there. But that would have been too easy. Too obvious. Too much about her and not enough about letting them destroy themselves. So she stayed silent. Let the ceremony continue. Let them exchange vows that meant nothing because they'd been built on lies. Let them think they'd gotten away with it. For now. The ceremony concluded. Marcus and Sienna kissed, brief, awkward, more for show than passion. Guests applauded politely, and the newlyweds walked back down the aisle as husband and wife. Marcus's eyes found Maya's as he passed. She saw the regret there, the understanding of what he'd lost, the knowledge that the woman he'd thrown away had become something he could never have, never reach, never deserve. She didn't smile, didn't gloat, just held his gaze for 3 seconds before looking away, dismissing him as completely as he'd once dismissed her.